So that leads me into the second study, which is of comparative happiness. They studied people who had just won the lottery, and they also studied people who had just become paralysed, either quadriplegic or paraplegic. And they looked at their level of happiness in the short term after they had just had the change in their life, either just won the lottery or just become paralysed. And then they went back and surveyed them again 12 and 24 months later. The interesting thing was that while in the short term, if you've just won the lottery, your happiness is up here. And if you've just become a paraplegic, your life's fucking shattered. All those things you could do, you're fucking on antidepressants. You're really, really deeply depressed. Like, it would be fucking horrible. I can't even imagine it. 12 months later, they're back to their default level, wherever that happened to be. Some people are naturally sad sacks. Some people are naturally optimists. When they had a look and talked to their peers as to what sort of person they'd been before, 12 months later, they're back to that person. They're used to dealing with being in a wheelchair. They've adapted. Life's just, this is normal. Life comes in a wheelchair now, right? If they've won the lottery and they haven't kept winning the lottery or made more money, then they're back to the same level of happiness as they were before, because things haven't changed since that time. Okay, they went and bought a nice house and a nice car, but they've still got the nice house and the nice car. Now they've got neighbours who've got nice houses, and things aren't getting any better. People want to see that things are getting better. That comparative happiness study was done to show that people like to see things improving. That's why it's so hard to go backwards. If we've had a business and had a great lifestyle and then we lose it, it is so much harder to go backwards. That's why when the stock market crashes, these stockbrokers go and take a freaking nosedive out of the 70th floor, because they've had this billionaire lifestyle almost, multi-millionaire lifestyle, because they're making all this money, and then they suddenly lose it in an afternoon, and they can't cope with the concept of not having all these Rolexes and Porsches and skyline apartments and having to go back and rent a freaking dump because they've lost all their money. They just can't cope with going backwards. But over time, if they do go backwards, they'll get used to that. So you need to understand that that's how people are wired, and psychological studies have shown this. So how do you show your team, firstly, that things are getting better? How do you make things improve? Because if it stays static, they will lose interest. Hey, you won the lottery. Fantastic. 12 months later, what's next? Am I going to win the lottery again? Otherwise, I was unhappy before. I won the lottery, it made me happy for a while, but now I'm not happy anymore. You need to provide them a pathway forwards. I've had it where I've given a great team leader, I gave him a big pay rise. I don't know, it was like 12 grand or something. He was on 70 and I put him up to nearly 85. He was stoked. He was over the moon. 3 months later, he quit. He'd been with us for like 3 or 4 months when I gave him this pay rise. And 3 months later, he asked me about a pay rise. I said, man, we just gave you a massive one. We can't give you another one. He's like, oh. So he quit. Didn't have another job. He quit. Because he's like, when's that going to happen? I said, well, let's talk about it again in another 9 months. If I had said after 3 or 4 months with us, I'd said, great, I'm going to give you a 3 grand pay rise. Another 3 months, another 3 grand, another 3 grand. Things are getting better. He sees that he's worth more. We keep on talking about it. I keep on giving him more money. Great. There's a pathway forward. Things get better than where they were yesterday. As soon as he's like, oh, I'm on this bigger amount, but then it's just like, that's normal now, and it's not going to go up for 12 months. He got the shits and he left, because comparatively things weren't improving. People compare themselves to who they are and who's around them. That I want to earn 80 grand instead of 100 grand because all my friends are only earning 60, rather than I'm earning 100 but they're all earning more than me. They can go on nicer holidays, buy nicer things. I don't want that. I want to feel like I am doing well compared to those around me.